Good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday Eve. We are so happy to have you all join us for the Ohio Urban Community Action Network statewide training. We're going to give folks a few more minutes to log in. So at this time, I'm going to encourage you to mute your microphones. And if you could please go off a screen for us. I also encourage you, if you have any wellness, well care kind of activities you need to take care of now, go get a little bit more coffee. You want to get some snacks, anything like that, so that you can enjoy the training. I encourage you to go get it done now, because once we get started, trust me, you will not want to miss all of the good information from today's training. So please take a moment, get yourselves comfortable, and welcome to the statewide training. We'll start officially in a couple of seconds. Good morning again, and welcome to the Ohio Urban Community Action Network, our statewide training. My name is Yvonne Sherrill, and I proudly serve as the CEO of this great network. For the past 5, maybe 6 years, we have perfected the statewide training so that the information is always timely and relevant for human service professionals. And today's session on transformational leadership in the nonprofit sector is especially special as we celebrate September is Workforce Development Month. I am so proud to share with you that the agencies who make up the Ohio Urban Community Action Network offers more than 40 different career or workforce development programs and coaching services across the entire state of Ohio. Programs that provide both soft skills and opportunities to earn certifications that will lead to high earning jobs. And our agencies are known as collaborators, and they tend to partner with employers in their areas so that they can encourage clients to train for jobs that need to be filled in manufacturing, health career, health education, construction, and more. And as a part of our policy platform, OUCAN supports programs and policies to reduce racial disparities in wages and occupational clustering, programs with pipelines to career fields, and companies who invest in people, including entrepreneurial and social venture ideas. So now let me give you a few housekeeping items so that you can fully enjoy today's training session. I'm telling you, I know some really, really awesome and dope people, and you are going to enjoy all of the information that we've provided for you today. So just one, please note that all participants, we need you to have your screens turned off and mute your microphones. You will still have access to the chat feature. So we encourage you to please, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please post your questions in the chat room, and we will ask our presenters to address your questions at the end of the webinar. So again, feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we would address all of those questions and concerns at the end of the webinar. We also want you to note that the webinar is currently being recorded, and it will be available on our YouTube page. And so Sharon will provide a link just so you can see the YouTube page that is completed with a library of other OUCAN training and event sessions. So please post the webinar, visit our YouTube channel so that you can review or share with your colleagues today's session. And we love social media. We love social media. So please join us live on all of our platforms. Share your selfies, share your comments. If you heard a really, really great quote, or there was an idea that really kind of transformed you or changed your idea about what you were doing at your particular organization, please share that with us on our social media. So as you can see on this slide, we provided you with a number of hashtags. because we all know that hashtags evolve and they carry. And so today's session is very important, and we want to be able to share with others how we are transforming leadership within the nonprofit sector. And then lastly, any copies of the training materials or handouts also will be available after the webinar. We will provide that information for you once we completed the webinar, and it will be added to the post-event package. So again, please remember to mute your microphones. Please go off screen. And if you have any questions that for any other presenters, please provide them in the chat and we will address them later. Now let's get started. Today's training set a record for the most, not only the most registrants, but we have 100% representation by each OUCAN agency. Led by OUCAN's training experts, Carrie Austin, Professional Development and Training Education Coordinator with Step Forward in Cleveland, and Marilyn Montez, Chief Operating Officer for Mahoney Youngstown Community Action Partnership in Youngstown. Participants will gain tools and strategies in protecting and reserving your energy while on the front line and managing up and coaching and mentoring for mid-management executive staff. So the first hour of the training is designed specifically for staff who work directly with clients on the front line. We know how that feels. We know that oftentimes our clients are coming to our doorsteps because they need help and they need immediate services and emergency services. And so we will today talk a little bit about strategies for approaching that work. We will also examine work-life balance and how to stay energized throughout a difficult day and how to avoid burnout. We all know what burnout looks like. I'm not embarrassed to tell you, I have had some meltdowns a few times before as well, because the world is so heavy right now. And many of our families and our residents and our neighbors are dependent on our leadership and our support. And so we want to make sure that we are whole so that we can support others. The second part of the training is geared towards management staff and how they can support those on the front line through mentorship, coaching, and improved communication. And then lastly, OUCAN Board Chair and President and CEO of Step Forward, Dr. Jackie Chisholm, will discuss her book and share tips gleaned from years of leadership during a fireside chat with our resident journalist and OUCAN's Communications Director, Sharon Bingham. And we have a little extra surprise for you all. Dr. Chisholm has generously gifted us with 10 free books. 10, you guys. We have 10 free books and they're all personally signed. So she has autographed all of our books for us. And so today we like to give away, and we want to thank Dr. Chisholm for her generosity. And today we will be giving away 10 books, leadership lessons, notes from and for the journey. So just here's the little tidbit about the giveaway. The first 3 giveaways are to those folks who were the first 3 people to register for the event. Throughout the event, we will spin the wheel to make it fair for the other 7 to also win. And the only caveat is you must be present during the webinar to be able to receive your book. If your name is called or you are selected or chosen, we ask that you send us your mailing address to info@OUCAN.com, and Sharon will put that information in the chat room for you. So at this time, before I introduce our first speaker, let's give away 3 books. So the first 3 people who register, y'all, you ready for this? Because you can go on your emojis, we could do celebratory, we could do hand claps. So the first 3 books for those people who are present, the first 3 who registered for today's webinar. The first book goes to Miss Angela Graves from Step Forward. Angela, if you are here, please give us a tug and let us know that you are with us today so that we can send you your first book. Our second winner is Miss Crystal Robinson Wales from MyCap. Crystal, if you are here with us this morning, please, again, give us a little tug so Sharon and I can give you your new book, Leadership Lessons, Notes from and for the Journey. And our last winner or of the first three, is Mr. Rudy Herder from Stark County Community Action Agency. And Rudy is also a member of the OU Can Roadmap team. So again, Rudy, if you are present, please send us a tap. Email us again at info@ohioucan.com. And then we'll be back for more sharing throughout the session. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Kerry Austin. Kerry is the Professional Development, Training, and Education Coordinator with Step Forward in Cleveland, Ohio. In his role, Kerry manages the training and education workshops for eligible clients within Greater Cleveland in the areas of increasing digital literacy, providing effective customer service, and executing effective job search campaigns. And this is one of the things I love about Kerry. Listen to this, his favorite quote. His favorite quote is, "A year from now, you may wish you had started today." That's pretty powerful for a Thursday morning to get started. Think about it again. A year from now, you may wish you had started today. Kerry's presentation today, Frontline Workers and How to Set Them Up for Success, will focus on renewing organizational awareness of the role of the frontline workers and staff, including important statistics for us all to learn and grow from. Since we're off screen, please hit the hand clap or the celebratory emoji, and please join me in welcoming our first presenter, Mr. Kerry Austin.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am very, very, very happy and very, very excited to be here to be your speaker today. As Ms. Yvonne, thank you for the wonderful introduction. When you were talking, I was wondering who is that person? But I am here working here at Step Forward, again, as an education coordinator. And my role is to make sure that clients and people we serve get services in terms of increasing their education, increasing what they need to know in order to make that transition to work or employment or whatever the next step is for themselves. So today I'm really excited to talk about frontline workers. So let me share my screen a little bit, and we got some really exciting stuff for you to look at. Okay, so frontline workers, how to set them up for success and keys to consider for our co-workers and staff we work with. It's amazing that the term frontline workers has just gained more and more traction lately because of COVID and some of the things we've had to work with recently in the world. And we really have to pay a little bit more attention to those people that are on the phones, those people that are out in the field, those people that are at the reception desk, and even those people that are secondary, because every time a problem escalates, there's that first line of management. And maybe we could even have another category, frontline managers, so we want to make sure that we are kind of tuning in or looking at certain things so that we can make sure we're getting the most out of everyone in terms of service that we deliver, and also in terms of making sure that we are positioning our staff, our co-workers, our associates to enjoy what they do, because it is a passion. It is a passion what we do on a daily basis. So let's get started with a little bit of data. There are roughly about 8 billion people in the world. And I was really surprised to find that
Mr. Kerry, I
Yes.
apologize for interrupting you. Your presentation seems a little small. Do you mind if I share the presentation from my screen and you tell me to advance the slide so that everyone can see it?
Okay, perfect.
So if you could stop sharing.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So we are back. So next, perfect. Thank you. technical difficulties, but we have a team. That's why we always recover. Again, there are about 8 billion people in the world, and 2.7 billion of these people, studied by McKinsey and Company, indicated that there are about 2.7 billion frontline workers. Frontline workers, these are the people, again, these are the people that are in the forefront of services provided to the community. You know, that's a third of all the people working in the world are frontline workers. Wow. And I thought that was amazing. But secondarily, what they found is employee safety was one of the biggest concerns for many organizations. And to break that down a little bit, when you look at employee safety, sometimes it's not actually direct harm where someone has threatened another person, but sometimes it's intimidation. Sometimes it could just be a staff member doesn't feel comfortable as far as moving, providing services. I actually noticed incidents this morning in our own office. A client came in and was very agitated because she had trouble making a connection with the proper person, and she felt it necessary to come down and talk to someone directly. And we discovered that she was in the wrong area, and her direction was going to the wrong area. But her agitation and the way it was received by our staff could have been a concern for safety. So again, we must be aware of that employee safety is one of the biggest concerns for many organizations. Again, and it falls in line with 45% of Americans, adults, report increased anxiety and depression. Now, is it, you know, we are in an area of heightened awareness about frontline staff and what frontline workers had to do. Many of them had to work through the COVID period of time, and COVID has lingering effects, anxiety and depression, because who wants to walk away from a job when you have obligations, you know? So again, just something to think about. These other facts and data are also found very interesting. 2.5 hours a day lost to ineffective communication collaboration. What that translates to is that some form of communication was sent, but it was not received effectively, meaning that they didn't receive it on time, or they did not receive it, or they did not read all of the information. How many times all of us, we've gotten emails, we look at the first couple of lines, or we look at the intro line and we move on. But we find out way down in the deep bed of that email, there was additional information. Excellent. Someone just said they had a similar conversation with their staff this week. Furthermore, 17 hours a week we spend reading emails, and 30% of those 17 hours, these emails are neither urgent or unimportant. You know, we're looking at being effective in what we do. But if 30% of our time is consumed with reading something, I don't want to use the term garbage, but reading emails that really just aren't necessary for us. And this last one I found really interesting, this last data point. 40% of frontline employees don't feel loved by their employers. Now, is that because we can't, we're not supposed to hug? I guess, you know, hugging is kind of subjective now. You can hug or you can't hug. I don't know. But they don't feel it. They don't feel the love. Now, is that because their job, the stress that we talked about earlier, the anxiety and the stress that they're receiving in their job, that they're not open to that? Or is it more of because the business and the responsibilities of the organizations continue and change so quickly and so frequently, that we don't often get enough time to tell someone how much we appreciate them. You know, I use an example in my workshop before. You know, I don't ever remember my father telling me he loved me, but I knew that he did because I always had food, I had shelter, I had all my needs met. He paid for my college, even though I was screwing around in the beginning. He paid for that, and he helped me when I needed help. And that's how I knew he loved me. So everyone processes love a little bit differently. And maybe as an organization or organizationally, we need to look at that maybe on an ongoing basis. How do we exhibit that we love our staff and we love the people and we love the work that we do? Next slide, please. Understanding the frontline worker. And now that's a short phrase, but it's kind of a tough thing to do. In situations where frontline workers feel the environment is negative, the majority of the workers have considered leaving their jobs. Imagine how much pressure that is to think about quitting your job. And it's really, really a decision. But if you don't feel love, you feel an anxiety, you're feeling a little bit of depression, you feel unsafe, and you still go to work every day. You know, think about that mindset, or think about a person in that situation. They're going to work because they have obligations. We are currently experiencing a lot of things as adults. You know, I think the term is life happens. You know, I have a mortgage, or I have rent to pay where I live. I have children. They have obligations. I think I'm fortunate that my children are grown, because I understand now for every little thing they do, starting in primary grades, there's a fee involved. And then the summer, there's a summer camp involved. So imagine having those expenses or those things hanging over you, but you don't feel comfortable at work. And then you're working full time. So when can you look for other jobs? Fear and anxiety about their jobs, health, safety, usually permeate their daily activities. So on a day-to-day basis, if you're walking around with a certain amount of fear, anxiety, you're concerned about your health and safety, how effective can that worker be? How effective can you get things done? How effective can you do your job? And the frontline worker's job is the first point of contact with often the clients that we're going to serve. So again, something to think about. And this final point here, 90% of employees feel that they should express their concern. So just about everyone thinks they should express, but less than 60% actually provide any feedback to the organization. So, I mean, how amazing is that? You know, just about everybody feels they should say something, but only 2/3 of the people will actually say something. When I read that, first thing that came to my mind is fear again. It's going back to the previous one. Someone put in the chat room that they don't feel safe. If I say something, and all of us at some point in time at a job, or whether we're on a team or organization or in school, they said, if I say something, now the target's on my back. And so I'll just deal with it, and I'll just keep my head down, and I'll go ahead and do my job. But in the long run, how effective can you be? How effective can you be by constantly holding that in? If there's something going on, there's something that's bothering you, if there's something that really is getting your goat, how effective can you be? Organizations must make communication more personal and relevant. That statement is just referring to how much does each organization want to make sure that the messages that are coming from the top down and really from the bottom up are reaching the people that needs to be reached. And sometimes as a secondary step, the message can be reached, but then what's next? What's going to happen next? You know, and that depends. I've years ago, I've worked in maybe a college job, and I remember someone saying, "We don't say anything about that because nothing's going to happen anyway." Maybe some of you heard that in your current organizations, but I didn't understand that when I was younger, because I said, well, this is wrong, we should fix it. But I was told, you're too young, you don't know what you're talking about. And so I think sometimes that concern gets back to us as adults in terms of the roles that we have, in terms of some of the positions that we have in our organizations. Next slide. All right. How are we going to get better in all this stuff? One of the things that we can look at doing organizationally and as individuals is maintaining effective and timely lines of communication. When does, information coming from the top down, how quickly does it need to come down? And then how do we get that information to the people that need to hear it? I was very surprised to hear that there are a number of organizations that have frontline workers that aren't connected in terms of the systems that they have. I'm fortunate enough to be in an awesome organization right now here at Step Forward, but there are some organizations that the frontline workers do not know how to reach back and connect with the staff or with the management or with the next level above management, and they really are out there on their own. Keep staff informed as much as possible about what's going on in the organization. I think most organizations, are good at spreading the information through email. We just talked about the email earlier on about how you got 17 hours of emails to look at all week. But if you are a frontline person, how much time are you really going to spend sitting down reading some email when you know that you got a room full of 22 clients, or your phone is ringing off the hook? I've been in the front of our lobby sometimes, and just to deliver a short message, but I can't even deliver the message because the person's on the phone, and then I see the second line ringing already. And so that is really something that, in terms of systems, of what systems that we have to maybe reevaluate and constantly reevaluate the different systems that we have and utilize. Establish a way to give bottom-up feedback. How does a person that is the very front line give some feedback? Of course, yeah, they can let their supervisor or their direct report know. But if you have such a heavy caseload, I mean, it can be the case of just the person that rides is in the motor pool, that drives either the buses or the transports. And if they have 10 people to pick up and they notice something that is an issue, but they have such a tight schedule that they have to keep moving. So how can they get that information in a timely fashion to the people that need to know it? And we don't advocate, someone driving a vehicle and then carrying on a conversation on their cell phone. In most parts of the state in Ohio, I know that they say, cell phone down or you're getting a ticket. So how can this frontline person give that feedback effectively? And then another point about that is anonymously. Everyone doesn't want to be attached to the information that they provided. As an organization, it is important that we make communication more personal and relevant. I'm fortunate enough to be at an awesome organization, and I feel that our CEO, Dr. Chisholm, is very personable, and she communicates, on a regular basis and lets us know if you have something to say, ask me. But to paraphrase, she generally always says, be careful what you ask me, because you might not be prepared for what the response might be. And but I think as organizations look to get better, we must be able to communicate with our staff, with our team, with everyone, from the person that was just hired this morning to the person that's been there 30 or 40 years. And how that's going to work for each organization, that answer I don't have. But I think as we put all these minds and master's degrees and PhDs and bachelor's degrees together, we can come up with different systems that will work for our different organizations. But then the key is that it has to be evolving on a regular basis, because the workforce is continually evolving, and we have to be cognizant of that, so that we are making sure that we are getting the information effectively to those people that need it, and they are able to communicate. Enable mobile first communication. I was real surprised when I was doing research for this to find out that there are frontline workers that have not been equipped with cell phones or mobile communication from the organizations. And so if someone is in the front line and they are working through, how are they going to be able to communicate something good or bad if they are not given the proper tools? And then in addition to this, I discovered that there are some organizations that have put on the back burner technology. They put on the back burner making sure that the frontline people have up-to-date, whether it's cell phone, tablet, PC, or laptop. We have to make sure in terms of with our different IT divisions that they're up-to-date and current, and that secondarily that they know how to use it. So there has to be an investment in that regard to make sure that things are continually to run smoothly. There is a need to have two-way conversation whenever feasible. That's a challenge, I understand, because every person in an organization is not comfortable expressing themselves. But it's up to us as the leaders, up to us as the managers, up to us as the supervisors to leave that door open. Our agency currently maintains an open door policy, meaning you can come in and we can talk, and we can make sure that we entertain or deal with your situation or your concern in a reasonable fashion. HR, the HR also has an open door policy. But how do you get the person that's on that front line that does not feel comfortable to talk or to speak or to get information across that they feel is a challenge without exposing themselves? So that's a big challenge, in some cases. Some cases we really have to maybe even go back, take a step back in terms of technology, and put that old drop box, the box where you just drop information in anonymously, and sometime in situations that's what's going to work. because I know from conversations with clients, a lot of them are mistrustful about if I send it on my computer, they're going to know it's me. Technically, yes, but most systems they have systems that you can send information anonymously. But you are correct. If someone really wants to find out who sent this, they can find that out. But we have to use some type of system that if someone, the box sitting outside of HR, or the box sitting outside of an office, or the box sitting in the lobby, if you have something to say, write it down, put it in there, and make sure that we follow up on that. Sometimes, just like in making a cake, sometimes the old ways are better. I'd much rather have a cake made from scratch in the oven than a microwave cake. So, and that goes into this last point. We must make sure our frontline workers have the right technology. And even secondarily to that, we got to make sure that our frontline workers know how to use it. We discovered that we're currently working with AT&T to just increase the way that clients and the people in the community utilize technology, understand a little bit about Windows, understand how to use their cell phones. There are many agencies and organizations that are giving away cell phones, but outside of making a phone call and maybe checking their email, we found out a lot of clients didn't know how to do certain things. How many times have you been in a meeting and the ringer goes off and this person says, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me." And then 20 minutes later, their ringer goes off again. "Oh, excuse me." And it's simple. They don't know how to change it. They don't know how to take the ring off their phone. They don't know how to do certain aspects of using that phone. And the biggest thing that we hear when we get into these workshops, these are many one-day workshops, I let my grandson do it. I let my grandson sign me up for this class. I let my grandson sign me up for these benefits. And when that grandson or daughter or person is not available, who suffers? That's our client. And when we look at our frontline workers, sometimes we may give them a nice shiny new phone or a tablet, whether it's an Android or an iPhone or whatever the case is, but we got to make sure that they know how to use it. We maybe need to invest secondarily a little bit of time on making sure what we provide our folks and our expectations are tailored toward just because I give you a brand new iPhone, I can expect you to know how to do all the iOS updates and how to do all the different functions of that phone. Next slide, please. I want to give you a story. And as you see, this is a story about a mouse. And this kind of encapsulates or sums up kind of what we are dealing with and what type of role we need to have with our frontline workers and the clients and the people we serve. So a mouse was looking through the wall and he sees the farmer and his wife open up a package. He was terrified to see it was a mouse trap. So he ran to the patio to warn everybody. There's a mouse trap in the house. He's talking to Mr. Chicken. And the chicken was cackling and digging and scratching out in the yard. And he said, "Mr. Mouse, I understand that's a big problem for you, but it doesn't really hurt me at all." And so the rodent put his head down and he went to Mr. Lamb and he says the same thing. And so Mr. Lamb says, "Excuse me, Mr. Mouse. I don't think I can do any more than ask for you in my prayers." So now the mouse is a little upset, and so the mouse went to the cow and the cow said, "Mr. Mouse, am I in danger? I think not." And so now the mouse returned to the house. He's worried and dejected. to face the farmer's mousetrap. That night, while Mr. Mouse was sleeping and everybody was quiet, they heard the pop, and looks like the mousetrap caught somebody or caught its victim. So the woman of the house, she ran to see what was caught in the dark. Now, she did not see the mousetrap had caught the tail of a poisonous snake. And so the speedy snake bit the woman. So the farmer immediately took her to the hospital. So she came back and she had a high fever. And the farmer, to comfort his wife, he said, I got to make me some soup to help my wife. So he grabbed the knife off the shelf and he went to find the chicken soup. Since the woman did not get better, the neighbors came around and to visit and to well wishes. And so since he had a house full of people, the farmer went out, found the lamb, killed the lamb to feed the people. Next slide. So the woman did not get any better and she passed away, unfortunately. So the husband, he had to go ahead and sell the cow because he needed to cover funeral expenses. So I guess the moral of this story is the next time someone tells you about their problem and you think it doesn't affect you because it's not yours and you don't pay attention to it, you need to think twice. The saying goes, he who doesn't live to serve doesn't serve to live. The thought process here is the world is not going badly because of wickedness of the bad, but because of apathy of the good. So when someone needs you for their problems, give them your hand or give them a word of encouragement. May you never lack empathy. So and next slide. And so I close with this. All of us are working in different departments, different areas of our business, of our organizations, of our community action agencies. And we have a role, we have a particular role that we must fulfill. And as we fulfill our role, it's accountable to our clients, it's accountable to the bottom dollar, it's accountable to the people that we work with. But we must remember that sometimes that initial connection with the frontline workers, if we don't take care of them, then the trickle-down effect is that our organization can ultimately fall or stumble. As we're looking at the reports, like the woman at one of the top pictures here, she's looking at those reports and wondering why the numbers aren't where they are. There's a secondary thing that maybe needs to happen, as opposed to just looking at the reports. Maybe she needs to get down and see what's happening. See what's happening with the frontline workers, see what's happening with the team, see how they are feeling about their job day to day, see how they understand what the goals are at the top. Every organization is accountable to their board, to their constituents, to their funders. But we have to make sure that we have people in the right place. The people that we put in the certain places, we have to make sure that they are able to manage themselves and able to manage the responsibilities of the job. I know that I've kind of gone on and on a little bit, and I really thank you all for this time and this moment to share a little bit of information with you. And if there are any, we're taking questions at the end. I'm sorry, Yvonne. If there are any concerns or questions, I would say if you were looking at your organization and maybe you're not meeting certain objectives and goals, maybe take an audit of your processes. And a quick way to do an audit is to just do a quick analysis. Talk to some people that are actually have their hands on the job. Talk to some of those frontline workers, and once they get past the shock, in some places, it's a shock when the person at the top comes down and talk to somebody that's cleaning the parking lot, or just moving the cars around, or just the janitor that's keeping your bathrooms clean. We can have a significant impact on our team and the development of everyone within the organization if we just take some time to make sure that we understand what they're going through. And they have to understand not all nuances of the big picture, but they have to understand to a certain level where their piece fits. So again, our frontline people are vitally important. Our frontline people, you can't even put in words of the value of them with each organization. And it's important that we make sure that they understand that value, and that we communicate that on a continual, regular basis. And, loved, like I said, 40% don't feel loved. Can we go out and hug everyone? No, everyone doesn't want hugs. But we can give them maybe, even if you give them an air hug from a distance, that might be enough to let them know, hey, at least I'm thinking about you. At least I'm thinking about the work that you do. So again, I thank you all for these few moments to talk about frontline workers. And there's going to be follow-up discussion with the, I know the next presenter, as far as taking this to a step further. It is just a amazing job that frontline workers do. I've done it. Could I do it now? Maybe, but I think in some places, I know in organizations they've taken people, executives, and put them on the phones for 15, 20 minutes, and they got a taste of what's going on. And look at different processes, and don't be afraid to try certain things, so that the frontline people can understand or see that you are connected, or that you are concerned with making sure that the processes work right and that we're taking care of you. So thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Carrie. If you all can go in the chat, I know that our screens are off, but if you could go in the chat, just give Carrie a high five, a hand clap, and keep the questions coming. We are loving the dialogue. Great conversation, great input from Chris Scott, and we saw a number of comments from Avis Files and people that we know that are serving and supporting our frontline staff. There's a lot of things that I gleaned from this information. Some of it is really just fundamental. Some of it is very practical. And some of it reminds me, like I hope with everyone else, that we just still have to be human towards one another. One of the things I continue to think about when we consider what's happening globally, everyone is going through something. No one is living an error-free, blemish-free lifestyle. We all are contending with something. And when you think about our frontline staff, when you think about those folks who are most responsible for being able to provide that initial intake or the initial communication about what we do in our organizations to support them, we see the statistics tell us that many of our team, our staff members, don't feel very valued. They don't feel very safe. And if you think about it from the mouse's perspective, because I absolutely love a talking animal, I have a fur baby, and I do believe my bird talks to me. If you all disagree, then you're not my friend. And it's just that simple. But they do talk to you. And if you think about it from something as simple as someone else's perspective, that's bringing home the point. What is the perspective of the person having to deliver this information? What is the perspective of the person having to complete some of the tasks that some of us, we don't know if that would be a good fit for us, or maybe we don't necessarily have the skill set to be able to support some of our team members in the way that we need to. So thank you, Carrie, for giving us a little bit more insight in terms of what we can do. And we ask that, again, you all will receive the presentation. We will share the slides, but in the meantime, All You Can is about networking and education. And we want to make sure that all of our staff, our agency leaders, that you have the kind of tools, and for other human service professionals and practitioners, that you have the tools you need to continue to support your staff. So let's keep the dialogue going. We welcome some of your insight, your thoughts. So even if you can offer it in the chat room, please put in additional tips so we can compile some of these takeaways, or maybe some best practices at your organization. You may be on the verge of, or on the cusp of, launching some really awesome kind of support curriculum or some sort of frontline staff type of training, and let us all learn from you. So please offer that information in chat, or you can send it again to info@ohioucan.com so that we can continue to share with the network. Again, if you have more questions for Carrie, continue to put them in the chat room. Sharon and I are collecting this information so that we can address it at the end of the webinar. Thank you again, Carrie. We appreciate it. And so now we're getting ready to go into another giveaway, book giveaway. So if you are just now joining us, you may not know that our very own board chair for You Can and President and CEO Step Forward, Dr. Jacqueline Chisholm, has written a book called Leadership Lessons, Notes from and for the Journey. And she will be joining us at the end of this webinar to talk a little bit more about some of the lessons that she's learned and how we too can glean from that. But in the meantime, she has generously given us 10 books, signed copies, you guys, signed copies. I already started reading mine. It's a pretty good read. You're going to want to have this book. And so we started giving away the first 3 for those who have already registered. And I'm happy to report that one of the books was redonated. So thank you so much, Angela Graves, for your generosity as well. So now, during this spin the wheel, we are going to give away 4 more books. 4 more books. So stay right here and watch as the wheel turns. If your name pops up to receive a book, please send us your information, your mailing information to info@ohiouca.com so that we can send you your book. All right, let's see who's our first person. Woo-hoo! Congratulations, Christy Capone. You are the winner of our next book. We hope Christy is here and on the webinar with us, because in order to receive your book, you must be present. So we hope that she is here with us. Let's move on to our next winner. Oh, James Stallworth. Yes, congratulations, James. We saw you chime in earlier. We know that James is here for sure. So thank you, James, and congratulations on your book. 2 more spins, 2 more spins. Ooh, I feel like Bob Barker, the late Bob Barker. What are we doing here? Michelle Cuevas? You are our next winner. Again, please contact us immediately so that we can get your books out this weekend. So please go to info@ohioucan.com and send us your information so we can get your book. All right, our last spin for this session. The last spin, who's going to be our lucky winner? Leadership Lessons, Notes from and for the Journey. Oh, I don't know. Oh, Brittany Lindsay. Congratulations, Brittany. Again, if you are with us, we need you to contact us immediately so we can send you your wonderful package, your wonderful book. And so thank you again, Dr. Chisholm. Don't fret just yet. We have more spinning to do. So don't fret just yet. If you didn't see your name come up on this particular cycle, we got another one going for you. So just hold on a second. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our next presenter. She is none other than the Marilyn Montez. Marilyn is the Chief Operating Officer of Mahoney Youngstown Community Action Partnership in Youngstown, Ohio. Marilyn has worked for MyCap for over 30 years and also worked with both the urban and rural CAA's network. She has a bachelor in business management and is a certified human resources professional. She is also a certified in labor management and a nonprofit accounting professional. And as a longtime CAA professional, Marilyn's presentation relates. You all get ready for this one. I saw it. It's going to be another good information generating kind of presentation. But her presentation on relate will provide tips for supervisors and managers in supporting their staff and empowering them to learn and know the differences of coaching, mentoring, and also recognizing burnout and some of the ways that we can continue to support not only our frontline staff, but also the staff within the entire organization. So now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Marilyn. Marilyn, you are on mute, and actually, if you
no, not any longer.
Okay,
good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for that kind introduction.
Marilyn, before you go on, just like Carrie, if you don't mind, I will share your slides. Your screen seems a little small, so I will share your slides. Right. So, okay, if you can stop sharing, and I'll put it up for you.
All right. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Carrie, for that great presentation and information. It's going to be a great leadway into what we're going to be talking about here. Next slide. And that's supervisors and management supporting the front line. Let's identify the front line. And I know we don't just have community action with us today, which is great, but in general, businesses, who are your frontline people? In the community action world, I can tell you it's everyone from the front desk through to our heat programs, our energy service reps, and everybody has different titles, but that's the staff that's working directly with customers or the public. And really, everyone here present, every supervisor, director, manager, executive, a frontline staff, all the positions within your organization and business have customers and are working with the public. And so everyone's goal is to provide what? Excellent customer service, correct? And so this presentation, we have such a wealth of experience amongst us. We have 89 participants right now. And so if you have something to provide, because there's going to be some points where I stop for discussion, I'd like for you to jump in and provide your information. Just make sure that we stay on topic and give us some nuggets and some key things that we can share, because everybody is working with their staff and some things work and some things don't work. So let's hope we can walk away with some solutions. So like I said, work staff, what I want when we're thinking about who the frontline staff, I want you to think about for a second how difficult the positions are in working with customers. It's not just because the customers, a lot of times we concentrate, the customers are perhaps in a situation and don't come in the best presentation or mood to discuss their situation with the frontline staff. That could be flip side with the supervisors and their employees. But if you just take a second and acknowledge the difficulty of all of these jobs in working with the public and the customers, you can take a breath and give that grace to everyone for a split second. But at the end of the day, we all are providing excellent customer services. And why? Because we have to recognize how important that is, correct? So I just put a couple of bullets, and this is where we're gonna, if you want to just shoot out a couple of words, on how important the frontline staff or positions working with customers or public are. Like for instance, they are the face of the company. Whether you're going into the homes, weatherization, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a social worker, whether you're a cook, you're the face of the company. The actions that you do reflect directly on the vision and mission, which most likely will affect your reputation in the community as staff work with different organizations. The word gets out. What else? What else did I leave out? Can you just unmute yourself and throw a buzzword out there? How important are the frontline staff in your organization or business? Anything else you can think of?
Marilyn, this is Tamika from Pathway. I would say most important. Without that frontline staff and without them having the ability, to really be educated and move forward and be trusted to do so, that's pivotal, because if they don't have that level of support from management and above, then they would likely not to perform well.
Correct. And we're looking for excellence, right? And
That's
so
right.
we have to give it the time and the importance. And that's why I'm asking to take a few minutes, because the truth is that many of us started at the front desk, perhaps as an operator. In my case, in 1979, I started as a clerk typist in Head Start. And so most likely all of our careers have started at some point working with direct customer service. And so the importance of that is that you started to develop skills on how to work with people of all backgrounds, of all kinds of situations. And the importance of frontline staff is that they have to know the rules, the regulations, the grants, the do's and the don'ts, and all of that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to present to you what's called RELATE. And this is a framework that has been used in the medical and social work field, but it's a framework that works all the way around because it has all the key issues. And this was created by Camden Coalition of Renee Murray. She saw the need that the workers in healthcare or in social work really didn't have a framework or a model that they can practice to see if they can improve the customer service. So the first word in RELATE is relationships. Forming trust, we talked about that in Carrie's presentation. And in forming trust, then you most likely will have the staff feel safe. It's the center of it all, the relationships. Now, in our community action world, sometimes that's relationships. I'm not referring to friendships. I'm not referring to providing employees different benefits and different rules or anything like that. This is just a relationship, building trust. I'm your supervisor, or the vice versa, the supervisor trusting that the employee has been well trained and they know how to do their job. They might need some tweaking or that, but there's a form of building trust, and we'll find out how that gets stronger. Also in RELATE is E for emotions, letting your staff know it's okay to come raw with real emotions without being judged. You got to give space to be self-aware of their emotion and learn to process them. So that to me looks like, a morning when you come in and you've not had a good morning, perhaps at home with the children, with the family, or you yourself are just not feeling well. Allowing them to come in and say, Marilyn, today I don't feel I'm here because I know we're going to be busy today, but can we talk about perhaps not doing direct customer service? I need some space. I'm not doing well. How do you feel about that? Let's have some discussion on the emotions. I'm sure everyone here in whatever department have dealt with staff coming in to deal with their emotions. Any feedback?
Marilyn, it's Jerry.
Mhm.
The only thing I have to say is, I mean, yes, I agree with you. You have to be in tune with your staff. I get that. My concern is that where is the fine line between somebody taking advantage of that and then who's going to do that person's work while they're not up to being frontline. So I suppose if that's an environment that is productive for the organization, I guess you're also going to have like a backup plan to
Correct,
cover that person's work.
Jerry. That's correct. And so this is giving you food for thought, because sometimes you know how it is as a leader or as middle management, that everyone's going to have a day where they're coming into work and they feel responsible because it is so busy, but there may be one or two things that they're being honest about, that today, just today, I can't deal with that. And so if the supervisors really know their department and their staff, most likely they have someone they could rely on for that one instance, and you're setting the rules. And we'll talk about that more as we go along with coaching and mentoring. The next is limits with Relate. That's where the boundaries are. That it's what is okay to do and not to do, whether it's for your employees or for the customers that are coming in, the participants in the program. So we have to set those limits because you want to make sure. We're going to talk about burnout, not being burned out, both for the supervisor and for the frontline staff that are here. Got to think about that on the limits and the boundaries, because some people just take it upon themselves to just go beyond what you've asked them to do or what their job is. And if the supervisors are not aware, you're going to slowly see some burnout on that end, and you're going to be burned out because there's some chaos going on and you're not sure where it's coming from. A for agency, important to honor and respect people's ability to make their own decisions, including supervisors, their staff, and participants. This should happen when you know you've had a well coached and mentored, and you're feeling that the relationships are strong. But you have to respect people. And I'm going to give you an example about, I know since COVID, a lot of agencies and businesses have lost a lot of seasoned staff. And so they're almost starting from scratch. And seasoned staff comes with many years, especially in the community action world, because of the various different programs and because of all the rules and regulations. When you lose that, it really, really hurts the agency, the departments. But if you have the supervisor aware of that, and you put out a notice, and what's happened, I think, in some instances, that supervisors now have, and employees are also in a position that they didn't think they were ever going to do this other job, and now they have been asked to go ahead and fill that position and learn things differently, and really in a quick manner. So being aware of that, then hopefully this training, and to maybe we could have a series of training if the feedback is that we need to continue talking about how we bring up to par the staff as quickly as possible, efficiently as possible, to make that excellent service. Now, when we put out an ad and for an internal position and nobody responds, we have to respect that, because people may be happy just doing what they are doing. And then the other side of that, supervisors may have someone that is in the position that really never wanted to be there, that doesn't want to be there, and that you're never, and they're voicing that, and you can see it in their work, and they don't know how to get out of it. So all of that trust and the atmosphere that you're trying to build is not going to work if we don't honor and respect the people's abilities, what they can and cannot do, what they decide they want to do or not do, as far as moving up and taking on more responsibility. And that includes supervisors. Some people have been put in supervisory positions that have never supervised and have limited training, don't have a coach or a mentor. So this Relate framework. This is parts that will make us think as we move forward and we build excellence. Teamwork. That's part of Relate because it's a collaborative approach. It's not a directive, always giving directions on what you're going to do next. This is a collaborative approach. Frontline staff work is complex. We've stated that. It's very difficult. It's not easy in whatever department, and difficult, so we need to leverage our teammates to deliver high quality services. What do I mean by leveraging? You want to know what are their strengths. What are the skills that you can use, that you can move around, that you can perhaps sit down and talk to them and say, have you considered doing X, Y, and Z? You're excellent at this. And if you're not excellent, let's say, I find that most of the time, a lot of staff have great skills, but perhaps they have a tardiness problem or attendance problem. So we'll take care of that in the coaching area and maybe working on that, but having that conversation about teamwork. E for ecosystem, what is that? It's very complex because we're dealing with the complex and we're a group of people, whether it's community action or your business, we're in the same area, the physical working environment of the office, working with people. And so we have that in common. And again, this part recognizes that it's complex, it's not easy, and we need to devote the time and the skills that we already have. We just need to make sure we make the time. And if you don't have it, know how to seek out and get them. So what are your touch points with staff? Have you thought about that? And we're going to have a discussion on that. How do you touch your staff? Is it face-to-face? Is it through virtual? Is it through phone or video? But do you make time on your calendars to touch the staff, to either get to know them, or if you notice some difficulty, a change in their attendance, a change in how they're arriving, a change in how they're working with customers, do you make a point of touching with them? Does anybody have any tips on that? Feel free to jump in. Your feedback is important. I know we've all dealt with this.
Well, I think it's important to have both staff meetings and one-on-ones, where if you're meeting with your staff or a group, if you've got lots and lots of staff, it's going to be hard. But to try to get an opportunity to meet one-on-one, even for a few minutes.
Okay, it's hard if you have a lot of staff. Anybody here have dealt with that and have a suggestion? How do you deal with the large department and how you meet with them? I can give you some examples of how we've done it, even through COVID. And it does come, the leadership, executive directors, really important to be on the same page with the supervisors and managers. We did Zoom meetings. We literally blocked out anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 hours just to touch base with them via Zoom, provided lunch or provided breakfast, and did some games. Nothing real hard, just to talk. How you doing? Let's have some games and prizes. Any of you have done something like that? Can you please share?
Marilyn, I can say on many levels, and proud to say so, that I really do engage my staff and passionate about it. And the reason for that, whether it's a large staff or a small staff, because I've been on both sides of the coin here, is very important that your staff understands that you're relatable. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about getting down into their personal business. I'm actually talking about being able to meet them at their level and they are being able to meet you at yours, and no one feeling in any type of way I'm going to use about that, So I think being relatable is one thing. And then being forthright is another. A lot of times we want to please the people that we work with. And sometimes what we have to talk about is not always pleasing, but those critical conversations have to be had. And I think once you develop that level of respect with your staff, whether it's small or large, it really will enable you to move the needle with them.
Correct. And we have some line staff here. I would love to hear what you would like to see or what has been done that you really enjoyed and you feel that management has met because we talked about feeling loved, and this is a way to show we care about you. Can line staff on the Zoom share, you're in a safe space, don't have to mention your agency or anything, but tell us what this discussion, how this makes you feel. Anyone? Okay. So we hope that this gets better as we, Yvonne, maybe we do some more series where we can really share conversation. I really think it's important to ask the staff also, how are you?
This is Avis. I saw someone in the chat and I thought it was an interesting comment. I'm just trying to go back and find it that said that they didn't feel safe sharing. That they didn't feel like it. Oh, she said, personally, I feel when I discuss my emotions in the workplace, it's looked at negatively.
Right. And so how does anybody, what kind of signs, what's being done that makes it look negatively, that you feel that it's negative? I think it's important for us to hear from someone, and the person that made that comment, it would be really helpful to tell us, like, what are some of the things that you saw that made you feel like that, so that we can make sure we don't do that.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I made the comment. So I'm super passionate about work. Like, I love what I do. I love my organization. And sometimes it come off as frustration or tears. And then when I start crying, people are looking at me like something's wrong, but I'm just explaining like, no, I'm really upset. I want to see change. I love that we're having a conversation, but I need the action behind it. I don't want to just talk about, oh, this is what we can do. I want to make sure we don't have this conversation again. And sometimes it comes off as maybe hysterical, or I don't know, because I cry. And then they're looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And it just makes me not want to speak up again.
Oh, Jasmine, thank you so much for sharing that. So hopefully everyone has heard Jasmine. It's very important for follow-up. I know Carrie mentioned that. If you're putting in, allowing staff, you have suggestions, follow up. It doesn't mean that you have to do it if you don't think it's possible. All they want is an answer. And so when, as we go through this, we'll show you that as supervisors, when someone's making a suggestion and they're asking for their job to be easier, or to intervene, if they need equipment, or if they just need a suggestion on how to deal with a certain coworker, supervisor, or an employee, a customer, that we listen and just provide some guidance. And if you have an employee assistance program and it's something that they can deal with, you can also refer them to those types of programs where they can talk more freely. Next slide. Thank you, Jasmine. Next slide. Okay. So as I stated, the previous slide, please. As I stated before, this framework is unique. I put a little comment: supervisors in red are responsible to make sure the frontline staff are engaged and enthusiastic at work. Now, you might take that and say, how's that my responsibility? Well, it is our management's supervisors, because we should be observant, and we should hear some laughter, and we should hear some positive things coming, some relationships building. And there's nothing worse than to come to a job where you're not excited to come in, but you have something to look forward to as far as the environment. It's okay to sit down and share lunch, or if you're not doing that these days, to at some point have some conversation and share with. So you can have even games going on, or contests, things like that. Powwows, you can make them fun. Let's do lunch hour together. Everybody bring their lunch, or you provide it, and we just sit there and we talk. And maybe if they have something that's bothering them about a customer or something else, it could be shared. And always make it a safe place and not judging. The traditional supervisors, we usually are always giving suggestions, directives, recommendations, and even the next step actions, right? So in Relate, this turns that upside down. It shifts it from you fixing it to creating an environment of collaboration, including the customer. It creates a sense of the agency of an entire, it's everybody's issue, everybody's problem, of making sure that everybody's involved in the environment, the positive environment, the excellent services that we provide. And that includes the customer. To Carrie's point, we have to be considerate. Customers don't have Wi-Fi and computer access and don't want to know. So we should not be frustrated about that. We can't make them learn how to use send a copy via the phone. Why don't we work on what we can work on? And that will prevent you from getting everyone frustrated, frontline staff, supervisors, management, and work towards methods that will help us have excellent services. The next slide. So, and continuing on that, it's our nature to always be fixing things. And a lot of us think, oh, let me just give them the answer or give them the directive so that I can have free time to go do whatever I need to do. Because if you're management, you have to manage. And if you're always in the department giving the answers and giving the solutions, then you don't have time to do your job. So this framework of Relate, if you practice it, learn it, practice it, and implement it, it's going to loosen up your pressure. It's going to allow you to do the management. The frontline staff is going to be more confident of what they need to do, and everything should run more smoothly. So let's talk about some examples of this. How would you do it differently with Relate when you have the knowledge? What would you do differently that just came to mind that you can implement? If you don't have an answer right now, just keep that in mind as we go through this, and commit to getting out of the directive mode and say, I'm going to try to use this framework more and see how it works for me in how I feel and how the staff is working. Supervisors, you can create the space for your staff to reflect and problem solve, as we discussed. It teaches the supervisors to jump in. Should not be, it should not be your first reaction when somebody comes to you with a question. What does the HEAP manual say? What does the HWAP regulations say? Have them go back and research. One of the things I want to highlight our HEAP staff, and I don't know if they're on, I think they're on. One of the things they did this past a couple of months ago was they developed a test on HEAP questions. And if there's a staff here, Joan or Jennifer, can you share what were some of the eye-opening results that you received? I don't know if they've been able to get on, but one of the things that we did go over was that the seasoned staff really didn't have all the correct answers. More of the newer staff did. And so that was an eye-opener, but that is something where you can do that. You can just pull from the manuals of your programs, do a little quick test. You can give out prizes, and you can gauge the knowledge of your staff, and then you'll know where you'll need the coaching and the mentoring. Any feedback on this? Jump in, unmute yourself, and share if you've done anything along those lines. If that was effective, or what were the highlights? Okay.
I think one of the pieces of this, Marilyn, is because this is my philosophy as a supervisor. I have to listen and empower staff to problem solve. I can't just go in there and say, well, here's what you need to do. You need to do it this way because this doesn't help with their development. Here's where that gets a little sticky. When well, we all answer to somebody, right? We all answer to someone above us. And what can make that difficult is when your supervisor isn't comfortable with that model. No, we want this done right now. You fix it. blah, blah, blah. So yes.
Yeah, so it's a buy-in in the management to make sure that you're allowing that space.
Yes, it's good to have that philosophy. I'm just saying it has to, I mentioned earlier in the chat, it's about trickling up versus trickling down.
Right. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about coaching and mentoring. We talked about some of the different areas, and I'm going to make this simple. The coaching, you want to remember that it's not management to get the job done, but coaching is about a specific skill set. So let's say new hires or people or employees that have a deficiency. Maybe they don't know how to calculate the incomes. They don't know where to look for guidelines. That's coaching. That needs someone has done this, and I would suggest a seasoned employee that you connect with a new hire or someone that needs assistance. The other side, real quick, of mentoring is when they have done very well in their job and they are no longer need coaching to do the job they were hired for and are doing it well in all aspects. But during that coaching, you've learned that they have really great management or problem-solving skills. And maybe through conversation, they would like to move to the next level, maybe from the front desk as a receptionist to an energy service rep. Then that requires an expert, and now you're going to go into the mode of mentoring. And so that's where you want to make sure that you have a mentor that it has been seasoned, that understands what mentoring is, because it's two different things. And that's the easiest way I can explain it. I have some important bullets here. The success coaches see their staff capable and resourceful, gives clear and open must-haves or no-goes, listens well, recognizes obstacles to meet goals. Together with the coachee, develops action plans to remove barriers and succeed in goals, holds them accountable and committed to the goal, and is a good listener. Know your staff at a deeper level. Be open to whatever solution the employee arrives at. And like Tamika said, when I said at a deeper level, we're talking about work, not their personal business. And of course, you'll know some of that, but it should not affect their work. It should not affect them, to move forward. Ask, what do you hope to achieve when they get into the job? What is it that you want to do? We got to listen and ask those questions. What's blocking you from getting there? So that's the coaching part. That's the part that you want to make sure that you get in the front. From there, many times you have identified a mentor that can move up the ladder through the agency. And I always say a well-rounded person, and I consider myself in the community action well-rounded because I did start as a clerk typist, but I went through the different levels. Didn't go from a clerk typist to a manager. Didn't go from a clerk typist to a receptionist to a supervisor. Many agencies, depending on their organizational structure, will have receptionists. We'll have a clerk, maybe a secretary, administrative secretary. I went through all those levels: coordinator, specialist, manager, director. And so when you go through the growth, professional development growth, through your businesses and organizations, you have mentors and you have coaches there. And at the end, you have someone that pretty much understands the mission and the goals and a lot of the do's and don'ts within the organization. Any feedback on that? Anyone can share how they have a supportive system in their departments or in the agency to help coach and mentor or move staff in the mentoring phase? Anyone can share? Okay, Ashley?
Hey, this is Ashley. I'm not sure if this is 100% correct, but this is just what was coming to mind for me. I know I've been trying to do more of that mentoring in the one-on-ones where I'll ask a staff member, what's your latest wins? What's your latest concerns? And then we try and take a deeper dive into how there can be solutions to the concerns they have. Then I bring on mine and kind of do that process with them taking the lead. But some of that is how I've been trying to do some coaching while also some mentoring, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would suggest that you do some of the coaching, when you feel really comfortable, so you can concentrate on, this might be the area of the attendance issue, perhaps not paying attention to detail, making errors. That's the coaching piece. The mentoring, if you notice on the presentation here, the topics are set by the mentee, not by the mentor. So the mentee is the one that's bringing the setting up the agenda. This is how you're going to build that professional growth. They're the ones that are going to do the calendar invite. They're the ones that are going to tell you what they like to talk about, where they want to go. You're going to hold them accountable. And you're going to talk to see if what they've come up with is realistically. Maybe they need to take a step back for a little bit before they jump to the goal. So the mentor should be knowledgeable enough to be able to guide them through that. But it's really the mentee that's guiding the mentoring. And where the coaching, the supervisor is the one that's working on those weaknesses, but really giving them the empowerment to know that if they keep up the good work and they improve in these areas, they could move into the mentoring program to prepare for other positions within the organization. And recommend that there really be in levels, like I said, going up slow, maybe, but if they're a well-rounded and you think they're ready to go, that's because everyone's different. That's the difficulty as a supervisor, and even as an employee, to understand that all of this is difficult. But sometimes taking your time and taking those steps are necessary in your professional growth. Any feedback on that? I noticed on a note here, someone said, I do not like being blindsided as a frontline worker. That's really important, supervisor. Thank you for that feedback, because as supervisors and managers, we need to know what you're thinking, what you don't like. And so, no one should be blindsided. Supervisors don't like when their supervisors blindside them. So we should not blindside a frontline worker. And one of the things we try to practice is when things are changing, new programs are coming, shoot that email if you don't have time to do the meeting and say, hey, there's a new department, there's new programming coming out, and then make sure that the directors and managers are working with you to make sure they include that in their agendas and talk to the staff about it. Or they come to you, whoever put the information out, and say, hey, I need to get this information to my staff. Let's work on supervisors and managers not blindsiding the frontline workers. Thank you for that feedback. Now, Jerry, I know you say that it cannot be helped, and of course, we're going to make mistakes every once in a while, but I hear the frontline workers saying, please don't blindside me, just give me the information. Let's make time to make sure that we improve in those areas. And got another feedback that in their experience, something that goes a long way in helping me feel empowered to do my job is to eliminate as much of the guesswork of expectations as possible. Thank you so much, because that's part of the coaching and that's part of the mentoring. Although it's driven by, the mentoring is driven by the mentee, that is also something that the mentor has to make sure that there's no guessing game in the plan. Coaches, new staff, make it as clear as simple. Community action is a complex world of rules and regulations and do's and don'ts and what you can. So take your time. It's not a one-time thing. It's not even a 1-month thing. It takes years for staff to be seasoned. And so you have to make time. It may have something to do with my anxiety as well as wanting to make sure everything is ready to go. I do believe that staff, when they take the positions, they want to do their very best. And I agree that sometimes we're lacking in doing our part in giving it the importance that it needs, because we're also very busy. But part of this training is that we're committing to be aware of that and making the time. And use your staff. If you have someone, supervisor, you have someone that's seasoned, that you can trust, that you build that relationship, and you can match them up with someone that needs help, and you still overseeing it, occasionally having them come back to you, then do that, because that's going to alleviate a lot of the pressure and burnout of the job on both ends. One of the things I always tell new employees is your direct supervisor is this person. If you have questions about your job, once you're being trained, you go to that person. You don't go to a coworker, because the coworker could be doing it wrong, and now you have set yourself back. So that's something that I really push, and the directors know that I tell them that. They are the direct. Now, do they do it all the time? I'm sure they don't. But you will see it right away, because they were doing well and all of a sudden they stray, and that's most likely they didn't ask the questions to the right person. So you always want to make sure of that. Any feedback on this? Remember, it's a two-way street. It requires buy-in from both of you and communication both ways. Communication is key. I find that that's the most frustrating, although I say, ask questions. There's still a personality. You don't know that person. They're shy and they're scared to tell you they're scared. And so that all creates, but good coaches and mentors, you're observant, you're seeing that, and you're working through it. Next slide. So let's ask ourselves, and these are just questions. Take a moment to read them, to avoid job burnout, both frontline staff and supervisors, management. Know the signs. And, the recommendation is that you call, this is covered in your health plans, call your doctor. But if you have a employee assistance program, that is the best. If you don't want to go to the doctor right away, if you feel like you are depressed, that immediately should go to the doctor. If you need someone to talk to before, have HR or your supervisor refer you and really you could call directly yourself. Most of them are set up where you can call directly and ask, no charge to you. Usually comes with numerous sessions, but recognize the symptoms, recognize your staff's symptoms, especially if someone's changed all of a sudden. That attendance, that timeliness, that detail, they were excellent at their work and it's being deficient. Please call them in. Let's talk. Give them that safe space. Don't share it. Let them know you're not sharing the information. It's as simple sometimes when you do the health forms, for your renewals and your insurance, always send out an email, go to your form, fill it out. I'm only going to get numbers on who completed. It's strictly confidential. Just putting that communication. So let the staff know how it works. Now, I do tell the staff, unless it's going to be something that affects the agency, whether it's publicly or it's somebody's health or something that, I have to share that. But if it's something that they just need to talk about and want a suggestion, then of course you always make the time for that. Any suggestions on this? Any suggestions for burnout that you don't see here? These are pretty much the symptoms. And so we all need to be observant. We want to create a work environment that we care about each other. We notice things that have changed, and we want you to get the medical care that's needed, especially with mental health. And this goes for customers too. Customers, you have to be patient, because when they are talking something that is totally out of what we are here for, there could be some mental health issues. Please be patient. That's part of providing excellent services. And if you can't handle it, call your supervisor and bring in your supervisor to help you deal with it. Don't get yourself into a situation where then you're providing terrible services and you get complaints to the CEO. Next slide. So what is burnout? I thought this was really explains it. It occurs because we're trying to solve the same problem over and over and over. And we know what the definition of doing the same thing over and over is. You know, they say that's the definition of being insane, but you know, it is frustrating. It wears you down, it wears your spirit when every year, you know, the rules have not changed in some programs. The staff were doing it fine last year, but this year they're not. So if you know that's an issue, let's start early in the year and let's say, let's give some reminders. Nothing has changed. Let's work together. Let's have a community of collaboration. Let's be problem solvers. Let's be proactive. Don't let the problem get out of hand. Let's work together. So let's stop going around in circles. Let's use the tools that we already know. Many of us are experts, whether it's frontline staff, you're experts at what you do in heat and weatherization. Those are technical positions. You're knowledgeable. You have the skills. You need to put into action your knowledge and problem solve. Let's not take the easy way out. Let's work as a community together, support each other, support the frontline staff. Let's use more of the coaching and mentoring. Hopefully that was helpful, was clear on the two differences. And I'm hopeful that we can continue working in these types of framework that we will improve. Any questions? Any feedback on this, on burnout and problem solving coaching? I see a lot of, I'm sorry I could not read everything as I was talking, but I have a quick quiz. Let's see if we can get the answers. Next slide, please. Okay, so number one, it is best to coach an employee at the end of the day, on the spot when you see the issue, even if the customer is present, when they are displaying a positive attitude, and the time and situation are appropriate. Which is the correct answer? Correct. The answer is C. When they are displaying a positive attitude and the time and situation is appropriate, okay? Let's give me the answer for what's the tip of the iceberg? An example of that. Describe for me what a perfect workday looks like for you. Why do you think you would be successful as a front desk representative? Do you enjoy your work? What's the correct answer of the tip of the iceberg? I see an answer A, but no, it would be, do you enjoy your work? That's the $1 million question. And that's something in the coaching side that would come up first up front. And a lot of times observant supervisors will know. Let's be honest, there's some people that have been doing the same job for many years and have never enjoyed it. They've done it because of whatever reasons they have, but they do it and they do it well, and some not so well. And so those are the hard conversations on the coaching side that need to be had. The correct answer is C. Which statement of mentoring is most accurate? Mentoring that works on fixing deficient skills, focuses on thinking, planning, and dreaming. It emphasizes networking and communication, or it pushes mentees by asking hard questions and focusing on details. Which is the correct answer? I don't see any correct answers. Oh, yes, I do. It's C. It emphasizes networking and communication. That's the statement most accurate in that group for mentoring. Networking, because you're working with your staff and you're building community. You're really capturing their strengths and having them work together, and which improves communication, and it just makes a more efficient department and provides excellent services. In which of the following case would a mentoring relationship improve the life decisions of a mentee? All of the answers here are correct. Since developing a mentoring relationship, Carlos have terrible reactions at school. Since developing a mentoring relationship, Lily has exhibited fewer behavioral issues at school. And Marina increased cultural knowledge since she started mentoring. However, now she believes she's the smarter than all people who lead her. Correct. The correct answer is C. Since developing a mentoring relationship, Lily has exhibited fewer behavioral issues at school. That would be, just translating it into the workplace, that you will see improvement in the accuracy, improvement in attendance, and you in the mentoring piece, you're seeing that they could go into the next coordinator position or you know, whatever next level would be for their skill set. Thank you so much for your participation. This was really great. Hopefully we could do it again and keep talking and having conversations on how to build our stronger agencies in the area of customer service. Yvonne?
Thank you, Marilyn, for a great conversation. Whew, I feel full. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm feeling very much touched. I'm feeling very much a part of the process. And one of the things that we have done in OUCAN, using experts like Carrie and Marilyn and Avis, and there's a whole gamut of you all out there who are working directly with our staff, who are providing the mentoring and coaching, is the generational differences as well. You know, we've talked a lot about why is mentoring and coaching so important. And part of it is we need to understand how can we work together when we have 4 to 5 active generations in the workplace. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I hope you all are much more enlightened than I am. I didn't realize there is a new generation description on the rise, Gen A. So we're starting over again. So we have gone from the traditionalists, you know, who are typically some of our heroes from the times during even before the war. They've gone through the Depression period. They were the penny pitchers. They were the generation who really kind of set this tone for the workplace. And then we've moved into, of course, our baby boomers. Many of our baby boomers are still very active. There's leaders. They are the ones who, if I had to pick out probably my favorite outside of my own generation, it would be probably the baby boomers. If we recall, they were the ones setting the tone throughout the civil rights movement, throughout the women's inclusion movement. And so really kind of putting a stamp on that. And then comes the Generation X, which, again, I'm going to let you know, if you're not a Generation Xer, you just kind of missed out on the best generation. I love to affectionately refer to us as the hip hop generation. And we're the generation of the self-sufficient and, you know, kind of latchkey kids and coming home and kind of taking care of things. And then we have our millennials, who are immediately following our Generation Xers. I have a millennial child. I have a millennial grown person. Then we have our, you know, Gen Zs and our Gen A. So if you are not as aware or informed about the various generations, I strongly encourage you, because I think part of Marilyn's presentation to us and the conversation around mentoring and coaching really is embedded in how are we also communicating and working together as multiple generations. It's very, very important. There are some things, characteristically speaking, as Carrie mentioned before, about technology that may be a challenge for some generations, and it may not be a challenge for others. Or if we are moving into what we are defining as being vulnerable in the workplace. I identify with our participant earlier who said that sometimes if she shares her real feelings, if she has a conversation about what she's going through that is being perceived as being weak, That too is sometimes a characteristic of being a part of certain environments, certain generations, certain teachings that some of us may not have received and some of us are still learning. So we're always evolving. And I think Carrie and Marilyn have done a absolutely amazing job of taking us at least through a introduction to how can we be more supportive of our frontline staff. We know that this is not the end all to be all. We understand that there are still more conversations to be had. We recognize that everyone may not have the safety to share right now, or they may not have something to share right now. So we welcome your ideas. We want to continue this conversation. We want to make sure that we can do everything possible to provide the kind of tools, the training, and a safe space so that we can grow these discussions and make sure that we're giving the kind of information that will help you and our staff do their jobs great. So again, info@OHIOUCAN.com is very, very important. Sharon will put it in the link again. I'm in the chat room again. And we welcome your ideas. Please send the information back to us so that we can continue to improve upon the trainings that we offer through OUCAN. I want to also say thank you again to the non-OUCAN members, our human service professionals who are also partnering with us in the communities. There are a number of you on this webinar today, and we appreciate your support. We appreciate the work that you're doing in the community as well. Because we cannot do this in a vacuum. And so it's important to have the collaborations and the partnerships in the community. I also want to just give a shout out to our board members, OUCAN board members who are on the call today. I will not embarrass them, but there are a number of them there. And I have to say thank you, because without that kind of leadership, we couldn't have these level of discussions so that we could continue to prove in the network. So thank you to the OUCAN board members who were able to join us today for this conversation. This is not a monolithic discussion. This is an opportunity for us all to learn and engage with one another. So now we're coming to a little bit of a break. And as we transition and get prepared for our last segment, our fireside chat with Dr. Chisholm, let me just go ahead and do the spin the wheel again. And let me remind you that spinning the wheel, if you did not see your name on the first one, we have 2 more spin the wheels. So just be patient. We had approximately 150 participants registered for the event. And today on the actual webinar, there is about a little close to 100. So we are making sure that you all are in line to receive a copy of the most prolific leadership book from one of our very own. So trust me, we want to make sure that we get these copies out to you. And part of the good news is we still only have 1 person who has claimed their book. So that means we still have 9 books in the next spin the wheel sessions to give away. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel again, and let's see what we can come up with for those who are still hanging out with us and to learn a little bit more. So let's go into this. Are we ready? Let's get the spin going. All right, who are we gonna stop on in this? Yolanda Lenore, I hope I am pronouncing that correctly. Yolanda, congratulations. If you are here, please, Yolanda, email us with your mailing address so we can get your book out to you this weekend. Trust me, you're going to want to start reading it right away. All right, let's spin again. Spin again, spinning. See, Generation X, I grew up on Price is Right. Do you all remember when your grandmother used to have to babysit you because your parents were still at work? Hey, look at that, one of our board members. Awesome, congratulations, Janice Warner. Thank you for being here. Janice is just a bomb leader. She commands the Commission on Erie, Huron, Richland counties, and she's also the board chair for OACA. So thank you, Janice, and congratulations on your book. All right, let's give it another spin. Bob Barker. Who is it gonna be, Robin or Shalandra? Robin Barnes. Congratulations. Please, you have to send us your information. Robin, I hope you're with us so that you can get your book, have you a good, nice cup of coffee or tea, or even a glass of wine and enjoy this wonderful read. All right, let's do 2 more, and then we will go into our third session and then we will spin the wheel again later. All right. Linda, I hope, are you here? Congratulations, Linda. Let us know if you are here so we can also send you your book. And last spin for this session. Last spin. Here we go, guys. Here we go, everyone. Are y'all holding your breath or no? Is it just me? It's just me. Okay. Martha Taylor, we hope that you have joined us. You are a recipient of the leadership lessons, notes from and for the journey by our very own Dr. Jacqueline Chisholm. So congratulations to our winners. Remember, we'll be back with spinning the wheel again. So if you didn't see your name this time, just be patient. We're coming right back. Now, it is my pleasure to move us into the third segment of today's webinar. This has been so exciting. I appreciate all the nuggets and the gems that I have gathered thus far, and I hope you have as well. So now we're happy to be joined by our very own Dr. Jackie Chisholm. Not only is she the OU CAN board chair and president and CEO of the Step Forward, but now she adds title author to her portfolio. Prior to joining Step Forward, Dr. Chisholm served as the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Music Cultural Center, a museum and cultural arts center planned for Atlanta, Georgia. She is the former Vice President of Planning and External Affairs at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum, where she was responsible for the development and implementation of the museum's strategic plan, management, government relations, community outreach activities, and project director for the construction of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame $13 million library and archives. Dr. Chisholm also served as the associate vice president for the community partnerships at Case Western Reserve University, where she developed you all the Center for Community Partnerships. She is the recipient of a number of awards. As a matter of fact, most recently, I had the great honor to visit with her and see her receive her award for the YWCA Greater Cleveland Women of Achievement. And I was so very proud as a part of the OU CAN network to see her receive that recognition. And so to help us learn from Dr. Chisholm's new book, Leadership Lessons, Notes from and for the Journey, our resident journalist and OU CAN's communications director, Sharon Bingham, will help us talk through with Dr. Chisholm, how can we overcome some of our challenges in leadership and use those lessons as stepping stones? Sharon has way more experience in writing and communications, about 25 years and 10 years working in the Community Action Network within Ohio. So in addition to crafting messages, she's experienced in website management and publication design. And so now I am so happy to turn over this final segment of our transformational leadership in nonprofit sector to Dr. Jackie Chisholm and Sharon Bingham. Giving them a head clap in your emojis.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thanks, Yvonne. You forgot to mention that I'm your work wife.
I didn't want to make the other work wives jealous, Sharon.
I see. Well, thanks everybody for being here and for your patience with our technical glitches. As you know from running agencies that are populated with human beings, things happen, and I just want to take a second to remind you that OU CAN is also run by humans, and we're doing our best. And I'm really excited to be here with Dr. Chisholm. And I have to tell you, I read the entire book, and you all want to get a copy. So if you don't win, I will be making sure to share in the chat how you can get your own copy. And I'm looking forward to getting my copy autographed. Probably in multiple places. I underlined quite a few things. So Dr. Chisholm, we're so grateful to you for sharing the journey in the book. And I have to note, you are so candid in the book about how you grew up, how you came into leadership, and all the struggles you had along the way. How does that openness translate to the way you lead day to day at Step Forward?
Well, first, Sharon, thank you for that intro, and Yvonne for the invitation. And I want to shout out the other board members. Glad you're on the call, and for everyone who's participated in this. So let me talk about the candor. Years ago, I realized one of the things that was important to me was making certain that people understood who I am and how I operate. So I developed a personal mission statement of open, honest, direct communication. And I say that every time I start a new conversation, because people need to understand how I operate. So to write a book and do less would be hypocritical. And I thought it was important to help people understand how you get here, because too often what they see, like even with the bio, and I appreciate Yvonne reading the bio, but what the bio doesn't tell you are the struggles. The bio doesn't tell you what you came through in order to get to all of those other positions, and it also doesn't tell you what you learned in kind of climbing the ladder. So I thought it was important to help people understand that, like you said, Sharon, we're human. First and foremost, we all have experiences. And what I thought was important was to help people who are interested in leadership. And let me stop and say, not everyone should be in leadership. Let's be clear about that. Not everybody should, because it's a major responsibility. And we've been talking about it. Marilyn touched on it. Carrie touched on it too. You're managing down and you're managing up. And you have to be real clear about who you are and what matters to you in order for you to do it well. And so that's part of the reason that I thought the candor was important. That's who I am. It's how I operate in the world. It's how I choose to operate in the world. And it's much easier. I don't have to remember what I told you, because what I told you at the time I said it was exactly my truth in that moment. So it's just easier for me.
Very good. Definitely much easier to remember it if it's how you really felt and what really happened, for sure. You also talk a lot in the book about your identity. And I guess that's part of being human and part of being candid. You're candid about who you are. But along the way, as you changed roles, you had to make some changes and in the way you thought about your identity. And you talk about shifting your thinking, taking leaps of faith. How did you do that? And what tips can you share for folks on the webinar today who might be feeling the pull of leadership, but are letting some of that fear of the unknown hold them back?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I think too often people feel that, but they don't talk about it, because leaders too often are expected to almost be fearless. We're not supposed to show how concerned we are. And I can give you some examples of something that happened when I started at my organization. And some of what I'm going to talk about are things that were in the newspaper. So I'm really comfortable mentioning it because it's public knowledge. But shortly after I arrived at my organization, a portion of my board decided they wanted to take over the organization. And I'm just crazy enough to believe that, the work that we do is important. I'm passionate about the work of community action. And part of the reason I'm passionate about it is because I remember what it was like growing up, where we only had, we didn't have meat, but we had bread. We had government bread, we had government cheese, that kind of stuff. And so I take it personally when somebody's messing with the organization that helps people. So we went to war. We went to a public war. And it's usually in those moments when you're being challenged that you have to be really clear about what matters to you. What are your values? We always say that we know who we are. And I've heard people say this over time. I'm the same person I always have been. And that's not necessarily a true statement to me, because the person I was 10 years ago is not the person I am now. The person I was 20 years ago, definitely not the person I am now. And every time I've gone from one position to another, it required that I had to expand my perspective. And in the book, I talk about this, that when we were talking about the front line I consider like the 1,000-foot view. You're responsible for one part, whatever that job description is, you're responsible for that. When you become a supervisor, you're not only responsible for what you do, you're responsible for what other people do, which means you have to expand your perspective. When you get into a directorship or a vice presidency or anything like that, your perspective must change. Because if I, as the CEO, am still looking at the agency from the front line, now it doesn't mean that I discount the front line, but I can't spend my time on the front line, thinking about that, because I'm responsible for the entire enterprise. So for me, it's important to understand, and I use as an example in the book, there's a difference between when you look at an orchestra. A vice president to me is responsible for a portion of the orchestra, and they may be the wind instruments, or they may be the percussion, or whatever that may be. Well, they're only responsible for that part of the music. The conductor has to understand all of the music. They have to understand what part comes in when. They have to understand how things are supposed to sound. So as a CEO, if I don't make that mental shift to understanding the entire enterprise, chances are I'm not going to do my job well. Same thing is true when you move from one leadership role to another. You must change. There are conversations that I could have frontline to a colleague that the minute I become a supervisor, I can't have those conversations anymore. Not with frontline. I can't have conversations with people who I have to now supervise. Can't do it. As the CEO, even with my vice president, and I have 4 vice presidents, there's conversations I cannot have with them. I just can't. So as a CEO, to a certain degree, and all of my colleagues on the OUCAM board can relate to it, we're islands. We have to either A, keep our own counsel, or find someone else outside of the organization that we can have a conversation with. And so I think those are the kinds of things that people aren't thinking about. And that's one of the reasons that I wrote the book, was because there's information, there's nuanced information, and you usually don't learn it until you're going through the process yourself. And so I wanted to make it easier for leaders to understand what that could be.
So if someone is in, say someone on the webinar today is new in a leadership role and they're struggling to make that shift in thinking, what would you suggest they try?
So this is what we started doing in our organization. Anyone in a new leadership position, we make available to them coaching. And Marilyn talked about this. So either find somebody within the organization who's coaching you. It would be better in the organization if we intentionally provided you a coach. Because it's really, like I said, it's leadership is not for the faint of heart. Too many people think about leadership in terms of, I get a new title, and I get more money, and that's true, but you also get more responsibility and you get more accountability. And that's the part that people aren't aware of. They're now responsible for more people. I'm responsible for over 300 people in my organization. I'm responsible for $40+ million budget. Don't think that I go to sleep every night thinking about what my responsibilities are. But I also can affect change in a way that I couldn't before. And that's one of the reasons that I was interested in becoming a CEO in the first place. I used to work at an organization, and again, to spare the innocent, I won't put a name to the organization, but I kept getting blamed for something I didn't do. And like I told you from the beginning, I have no problem with telling on myself. And to me, that's one of the signs of a good leader, is you need to be able to own your stuff. And that's a sign of a good leader, a good person working for an organization. Own your stuff. I don't blame other people for stuff I do. And every time I hear somebody tell me, well, because I did blank, because someone did blank, I don't want to hear that. Because at that point, whatever they did, you had a choice. You could have chosen to do something differently. So own your stuff. So I own my stuff. Well, I kept getting blamed. And after the 4th getting blamed, and confronted it, by the way, that's the other thing, professionally confronted it, and said to the person who was blaming me, I'm surprised you didn't say to whomever was complaining about me, what does that have to do with you doing your job? But I said, don't worry about it. I'll talk to them myself, because I said it from the beginning. Every place I've been, open, honest, direct communication. If I have a problem with you, I'm coming straight to you. You have a problem with me, come straight to me. Nobody else is going to be able to answer your question except me. So after getting blamed the 4th time, I said, well, heck, if I'm going to get blamed anyway, I may as well be in charge. It was in that moment I said, I want to be a CEO. And having said that, I understood I think I better understood what a CEO had to do. I was intentional in terms of the positions I was interested in pursuing. I knew I wanted to be in leadership, and let me tell you how I knew that. And part of it was because other people saw it in me. I didn't always see it in myself. So people kept, I mean, volunteering me for things. I remember, and I put this in the book, I went to a meeting one time and I went to the bathroom before all the decisions had been made. And I came back and I had been voted the chair of a committee. And I said, number one, never leave the room until all decisions are made. But the fact that it kept happening, so either I had to acknowledge that there was something there that other people saw that I didn't see. And I'm Christian, so let me bring that into it for a minute, not trying to proselytize, but it's just who I am. And so I said, okay, God, this keeps happening. What do you want me to do with it? Mm-hmm. And so I just said, okay, if other people see it and I want them to be right, so I'm going to work really hard never to be the weak link on any change. So that's my mantra. I never want to be the weak link on any change. I like getting stuff done. So I pursued it. And every time I pursued something, I paid attention to the person I reported to. And I took notes, whether it was, physical notes or mental notes. What are they doing well? What would I do differently? Okay. And that every person I reported to, I've taken mental notes. And that's part of the stuff that shows up in the book. What did I learn? If I wanted a mentor, okay, not every boss was a mentor of mine, or put it like this, if they were a mentor, some of them were to show me what not to do. Now, I didn't say that to them, but there's some things I would not do that. Like the person I was telling you about who kept accusing me of stuff without talking to me about it first. Did I do it? Okay. So I really paid attention. And if the person, I didn't report to the person, but I saw a skill set that they had that I was interested in learning, I walked up to people. I remember this one woman, I walked up to her and I said, you know what? I would love to take you to coffee. And this is what I'd like to learn from you. And I told her specifically what I wanted to learn. And she was so gracious about it because I wasn't asking anything for her. If you approach people to mentor you, you also need to give something. There should be a reciprocal relationship. Okay, sharing my network with that person, even if it may be a small network. But for someone who is new to leadership, I think one is getting coaching. If it's not available in your organization, talk to your supervisor about getting coaching, or the supervisor coaching you. But you need to be clear about what it is that you need coaching in, because too often people will come to me and they kind of talk and I'm waiting for them to tell me, what do you need? And if they never get to it, then I'll ask exactly, what do you need? I'll try to track the conversation, but it really does help if you have a pretty good idea of where the gap may be for you, and especially the farther up in leadership you go, I think Marilyn talked about this, is you don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time. And so it's not that I don't care about you. And it's not that I don't want to spend time with you. I don't have time to do it. So the more you can come to me with your need, and I can see how I can be helpful to you, then the more that interaction will be productive for both of us. What you don't want to do is to come to your supervisor or anyone like that and vent. And if I give you permission to do that, because there are times when I've given my senior leaders the opportunity to do that, but you don't want to keep doing that. That's not a good strategy, because if all you do is vent without any solution, then it starts making me question whether or not you're the person who should be in that role. But if you come to me with vent, and everybody needs somebody to talk to, and I get that, because I need somebody to talk to as well, but I'm mindful of their time. And I recognize the importance of having their ear. And so I never want to lose that. I don't want to become a burden to somebody else that I'm asking for help.
Yeah, we've all heard that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but sometimes the squeaky wheel gets replaced.
Right. And matter of fact, somebody mentioned it in the chat. I think it's important to be able to be authentic in whatever role you're in. It's a shame to come to work and pretend to be somebody else. And I talk about this because for years, probably decades, I've said I've deserved an Oscar for being Jacqueline Chisholm, or as many years as I performed that particular role. And then one day realized, and it was a simple thing. I wound up going to Atlanta to start that music museum. The problem that we had was we couldn't get the funding for it. Everything else was in place, had all kinds of, phenomenal board members, like the Grammy Museum's president and president of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the chair of Sherwin-Williams. They were on my board, my advisory board, but couldn't get the money. And what I said to people at the time was the thing didn't exist. It only existed on paper. So people would say, and we always do this, oh, your name is, what do you do for a living? Well, what I was doing for a living was a startup. And so I used to tell people I'm the queen of air because that's how I felt. It didn't exist. It was in my head. It was on paper, but it didn't exist. So I was queen of air. So the question then became for me, who are you when you don't have a title? Think about that. Who are you when you don't have a title? And so it felt to me like I had been, and we've heard this before about when you wash your jeans, you're supposed to turn them inside out to wash them. It felt like I had been turned inside out. That God had turned me inside out, washed me out. And I was left here with, okay, who am I? So when I came back to Cleveland after being in Atlanta for a very short time, I was a different person. And that person was probably the most authentic that I've ever been. And that's only been since 2014. So in terms of being the most authentic person, I've always been direct. Don't get me wrong, I've always been direct. But in terms of expressing me, I didn't, because a lot of it, Sharon, when you asked the question about the, candor in the book, I grew up in a household where my father beat my mother. Then I turned around and I was in a relationship with someone from the age of 15 to 19 who beat me. And what happens over a period of time, that the mental, stress of that, the physical stress of it too, but what it does to you is it makes you, my father really didn't come home and stuff like that. And when he did, like I said, he used to beat my mom. So I have issues with abandonment and rejection. So as I grew older, if you needed me to be purple, I was purple. You needed me to be green, I was green. You need whatever color you needed me to be in order for you to like me, because I was important to me, then that's what I was. But when I came back from Atlanta, I was like, I'm sorry, who are you? Do you pay my bills? Nope. Did you call me to see how I was doing? Nope. So it made me realize that not everybody I define as friend was a friend. They're an associate. Not everyone who I looked up to should I have looked up to. And I've given a lot of people power over me because of that need to feel connected and not rejected and abandoned. And so, like I said, in 2014, when I came back, I was totally different. But what I didn't realize at the time was that experience was necessary in order for me to do this job well. I needed to be a different Jackie in order to do this job well. And so thank God for it. It was one of the best and worst experiences I've ever had in my life. But boy, did it teach me. Boy, did it prepare me. And I'm thankful for it. I'm very thankful for it.
But and you talk in the book, and I've read in other things, you can learn something from every experience. Right. And you talk about being a Christian. There's a number of Bible verses that talk about how adversity can be used for good. How you can get something good out of something that was difficult. And it sounds like you completely overcame your any tendency toward imposter syndrome by 2014.
No.
But for those of us who are still struggling sometimes.
No. I don't want to make that. No. So the imposter syndrome, for those who have heard it before, you're sitting there in a role and you're feeling as if somebody's going to figure out that I really don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Okay. So I've been in my job 8 years. I still have these moments where that will pop into my head. And then the next thought I have is, what are you talking about? You've been doing this for 7, 8 years, but it's still there. And I don't know if that's a function of my past. You know, I'm privileged, and I realize I'm privileged, but I'm still like that little girl who had to go through all that stuff. And even though I'm privileged, I've never taken it for granted. I don't take any of this for granted. Matter of fact, when I have really bad days, and all of us do, and people were talking about it in the chat, what I do, I will get in my car and I will drive to, for those who are in Cleveland, I grew up on Scoville off of Woodland, near like 55th and Woodland. I will drive there. Then I'll go to 93rd and Kinsman, where we were. Then I'll go to 143rd and Kinsman. You know, and so all I have to do is I'll drive to where it all started and then remember, you know, from whence I've come. And we talk about that, you know, the expression many people use, some of it use it in a negative way, is don't forget where you come from. I've had people say that to me, well, don't forget where you come from. And I'll go, for those people who say it that way, I'll say, I never forget where I come from, but I'm not trying to go back there. Yeah. For those who say it the way I'm talking about, I never forget where I've come from, because it's the journey that got me here. The good, the bad, every lesson, every good word, every harsh word, every falling down and standing up. And for me being a Christian, had it not been for my faith, believing that all things work together for good to them who love the Lord, who are the called according to your purpose. Every time I've had some really difficult experiences, I'll go back to that particular verse. Everything works together. I believe, because if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be able to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
When those things happen.
I have that one on my mirror. That's Romans chapter 8, verse 28, for those of you who are taking notes. What about, you also, the other syndrome you talk about in the book is Atlas syndrome. The image of the, I think it was a Greek, I forget if it's a Greek or a Roman god of Atlas holding the world on his shoulders. You feel like you have to do it all, and you have to do it all well, because you are responsible for 300 some odd people. How do you let yourself be human when you have so much responsibility?
So with our team, and shout out to Carrie, who talked about some of this. With the team in particular, I always tell them I start off with open, honest, direct communication. And what Terry was talking about, the reference for that is that when I arrived at our organization, there were so many problems that we had, and some of which, most of which I didn't know when I got there. But it was a place where people felt that they weren't being heard. So we had a meeting, and in the meeting, people were, I mean, it was so disrespectful. I don't know if I've ever been in a meeting where people were so disrespectful, and I had to pray through it. And finally, after some of the way they asked me the questions, I stopped them and I said, let me ask a question. I said, for everything that you all are complaining about, how long has that been in place in this organization? I've been there 1.5 years. And so to a person, they started looking up, and when people start looking up, then that means they're calculating in their head how long something happened. And so I'm watching, you know, everybody in the room, and they're all trying to figure it out. And I said, okay, so let's agree that this has happened longer than 1.5 years. I said, so how dare you expect me to come in 1.5 years and fix something that you all agree has been going on for X number of years? And then finally, what have you done to make it better? So again, I walk in saying, I'll own my stuff. This is what I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for the entire enterprise. 300 and some odd people's paycheck depend on my leadership. I get it. The finances of the organization, I'm responsible. The CFO is responsible for making certain that we do what we're supposed to do, but I'm responsible. The board holds me accountable. And again, I have to remind people of that. You know, at the end of the day, they're not going to blame you. They're going to blame me.
Right.
You know that they're going to blame me. I do. Okay.
You're the one that's going to be in the meeting.
I'm the one. So I try my best, even with our staff, to say to them, I'm going to hear you. I listen because I care. I care about the people who walk through the door because, like I said, my mother was eligible to receive these services when my parents divorced. She didn't try to get them for whatever reason. That's true for a lot of clients or people who should be our clients. They're afraid. They feel, ashamed or whatever. My mom didn't do it. She could have, but she didn't. So we struggled. Okay. I never forget that. I never forget the who we serve and why we're there. By the same token, I was a secretary when we used to call them secretaries. Now they're administrative assistants. But I wound up going to college for 8 years to get my undergraduate degree because when I couldn't afford college, I stopped. I worked as a secretary, and then I went back when I could afford it. So I did that 3 separate times. The people that I worked for who treated me like an important member of their team, I did extra stuff for them. Anybody who treated me like I was a piece of furniture, I looked at my job description, that's all I did. Don't ask me to do anything more. But I remember what it was like to have someone treat me like a valued member of the team. So my leadership style is always to look people in the eye, to listen to them, and to be honest with them. Going back to what Carrie said, be careful how you ask me that question, because like I said, these people, when they came at me, it was as if, and I've said this to my team, it was like I stole something. You go, hold it, wait a minute, back it up.
Hold on.
Because I'm not going to come at you that way. Don't come to me like that. I'm going to respect you first and foremost. You're an important part of the organization, frontline, middle management, whatever. Frontline people, you do the work. Period. Stop, end of sentence. You do the work. You're the front line. You're the people who all the clients see. We need to treat you well so you can treat them well. And so I never forget that. I never forget that it's people in the organization who do the work. I get upset when middle managers and then the senior managers don't treat people well. Now I've got a problem, because the reason all of us are there, the middle managers and anybody above that, our job is supposed to be to help the frontline people do their job, period. And when we're not doing that, we're not doing our jobs. So for me, I'm thankful for the experience of having been a secretary. I'm thankful for the experience of having been a frontline person, because I know how I wanted them to treat me. And so I don't forget that. I think the worst thing a leader can do is if you've gone up the ladder and you've forgotten about going up the ladder, and then you ascend to a certain position, you have authority, and then you lord it over people. Terrible leader, because you have now forgotten every lesson that you learned. And I've been saying this recently. There's a quote that says, power corrupts. And then it says, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that if you're not careful, even in my role, I consider myself a steward of this. I don't own this job. And at some point in time, somebody else is going to take it over. But while I'm here, I'm on assignment. I don't expect to retire from this place. Now, I might. Who knows? I'm old enough to retire.
Well, we'd like you to stick around.
Thank you. I would hope they do everything. But I say that to say, too often people get so caught up in the title and the power and all that other stuff, and they forget about the reasons why they're there. Yeah. So I constantly remind our team, don't forget your why. Don't forget why this exists. Don't forget why you're in that role. Don't forget why. Because if you do that, then chances are you're going to forget. And then you start acting as if you're better than somebody else, that you know more than somebody else. There are certain skill sets that I have. Yes, absolutely. Is there knowledge that I have that somebody else in the organization may not have? Absolutely. Okay. But for my team and anybody who's on here who's part of my team, I delegate fully. 100% delegation. You're responsible. Now, your job is to make sure I'm informed. If I find out, if it comes to my attention, that you haven't done something you're supposed to do, and I have to go into your division, now we got a problem.
Right.
Because I should not have to do that. If I've hired well and I've helped everybody understand what my expectations are, it makes it so much easier. But that's part, to me, leadership is stewardship. Leadership is stewardship.
Excellent. That's an excellent quote to end on. Leadership is stewardship. Dr. Chisholm, thank you so much for your candor, your caring, your compassion, your courage. We appreciate everything that you shared today and in the book. The comments in the chat are I'm seeing a lot of amens and a lot of appreciation for how transparent you have been with us today. We really appreciate it. Yvonne is going to give away some more books, and I will put the link in the chat where you can order your copy if you do not win. It is very reasonably priced. So thank you so much for this gift and the gift that you give the network every day.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. C. Listen, I feel like I just had an old school homemade cake. Do you all remember when your mother for your birthday may have had a couple of dollars to actually make you the bomb cake? And there was always 3 layers, because it's not a good cake if you have to have all 3 layers. You have to, because it gives it the richness, the fullness. And we had 3 layers of expertise today. We learned from Carrie what we can do to better support our frontline workers, more empathy, showing them value, and how we are communicating with them. Let's not blindside them. Let's make sure that we're giving them as much information and tools as possible. Marilyn swooped in and she talked a lot about what are the ways that we can continue to relate. How are we relating to those folks who are a part of that process, who are still challenged with folks who are coming to our front door, and they may be burdened with so many different responsibilities and challenges. So what are we doing to hold on to that? And then, of course, the icing on that 3rd layer and putting a little icing on it is hearing from our very own resident author now, Dr. Chisholm, and talking a little bit. I think I took away 3 things from this particular session for myself. One is the shift. That shift does happen. And it doesn't necessarily mean from just one particular promotion or an advancement, but just if you're moving from a different position, perhaps your supervisor or your staff has tagged you for another opportunity, because like Dr. C said before, you may have other talents and skills that may be better served in another role. So how that shift happened, your faith. Listen, faith is very, very important for many of us. It gets you through some tough times. It is an opportunity for you to reset and ground yourself so that you can continue to do what you do. And then the last one is your why. Because we oftentimes forget, what is my why? Why am I doing this? Yes, there are going to be days where it doesn't feel so good. There's going to be days where you just want to throw up your hands, like Dr. C said. If you're treating me like I'm option 2 and not the priority, then I'm only going to behave like an option 2. But if I feel valued, if I feel like I am being prioritized in my organization and in my work and what I bring to the table, you're going to get the best of me, because, of course, leadership is stewardship. So thank you again to Carrie, Marilyn, and Jackie for being with us today. I think we learned a lot. And let's go ahead and go into a quick spin the wheel. We still have 6 books to give away, you all. We still have 6 books to give away. So let's go through this one more time and let's get these 6 books done. Ready? Let's go. All right, here we go. Spinning this wheel. Who's going to get a book? Sharon has put the link in there so you can order your own. I have mine with my copy. Carol Allen, are you on? Congratulations, Carol. We need you to please contact us at the info email quickly. Please, Carol. Let's spin again. Who's going to join us now? We might have to start a book club now, y'all. Woo! Avis Files. I know this young lady personally. Congratulations, Avis. Again, please go to the email and send us your mailing address so we can get those out to you all this weekend. Next up, we are happy Jerry Jenkins from MyCap. Congratulations, Jerry. Congratulations. We know that she is here and has been giving us some great commentary. So congratulations, Jerry, on your book. So that takes 3 people. Come on, come on, come on. Oh, Yvette Haley, congratulations. If you're with us, please contact us immediately. Let us know that you are here so we can give you your book. Send it to us in the info at OHIOUCAN. Please send it to us quickly so we can make sure that we're keeping track of who received their books and who was here. All right, let's do last 2 spins. It looks like we're going to cover the last 6 books. This is awesome. Thank you, Dr. C, again, for your generosity. This was awfully kind of you to support us and give us that. And Ashley Abraham, this is another awesome emerging star out of Impact Community Action Agency. So congratulations, Ashley, on your new book. One more spin, you all. One more spin. Ready? Let's go. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Nope, we're going to do it again. I'll hit it twice. Let's hit it. No. Oh, I'm sorry. Emilio, I'm sorry. Emilio, are you here? If you are here, we would like to give you a copy of the book. So please hit us up on the info email. Let's do it one more time, just in case we missed anyone. One more. Last spin. And this is for the finale. Angelina Menifee, we hope that you have joined us. If you are here, please send us again your information. I want to say again, thank you to our outstanding presenters for your information today. And thank you to all of the participants. This was an amazing discussion. Again, we would like to hear more from you. So stay tuned for more information, more training opportunities like this so that we can continue to dig a little deeper on ways to support each other, our clients, and our staff. So thank you again, you all, for being here. Don't forget all the materials. The recording will be ready, available for you on our YouTube channel. So check back with us in about another, by next week. Remember, Sharon and I, we don't have a large staff and we're human too. So give us a little grace. And I'm gonna end on leadership is stewardship. Don't forget that. Tweet that out, Facebook it. Leadership is stewardship. Thank you again for joining us for our statewide training, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.